Watch him throw the ball, we gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.
Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of Trap or Die Podcast. I'm your host of the Trap or Die Podcast, Mual, in here with the fellas. AJ Dre's in the building. Realistic, as always, tapping in at like several hours before the show starts. What's up, player? Jay Tizzy, what's up? Peacecraft said AJ dropped some crumbs Sunday. What's up, Peacecraft? Monty, I see you. What's going on? Everybody checking in live. Appreciate y'all checking in. On the show today, I ain't even gonna hold you. Y'all gonna be disappointed. It's like, nah, let me stop. We have to deviate from our schedule. He said he dropped some crumbs from the fufu. Hey, bruh, I love this rivalry, man. I gotta get something where we can call into a Google number, bruh. I gotta find out that technology for StreamYard. Before I check in with AJ and Dre, we're gonna have to push Thor Nystrom. Excuse me. Let me gather myself, get this thing going. I'm a little everywhere right now. Thor Nystrom is joining us on today's show. Thor Nystrom, if you all don't know him, he does an excellent job over the years breaking down the draft. He's an NFL draft analyst for Fantasy Life. So he's he's been in the area. He's broke down some things. He does the combine. He just came from the combine. So we'll chop it up with him today. Jay Gruden is going to be on Trap or Die if he was scheduled to come on today. But I lie to you not. He forgot it was his birthday. But no, Jay Gruden is going to be on the show, whether it's a separate episode this week or next Tuesday. Jay will be on. We discussed that a couple hours ago. So we'll go ahead and have to reshift our focus. But the good news is, gives us a little bit more time. What's up, Deontay and JC? The good news is we get to discuss the news of the weekend and some upcoming potential developments to follow, given that next week is the start of free agency and the tampering period. We're going to get plenty of nuggets within a few days upcoming. Dre, AJ, what's going on with y'all? How y'all feeling, man?
Shit, man. Look, Mo, I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I'm struggling. I am struggling.
I already
Back
know
to
what that
work
means.
every day. Back
Yep. I already
that
know what that
commute,
means.
dog. Like I come home, all I got energy to do is get ready to do the same shit in the morning. That's it.
That's exactly, bro. That's exactly how I feel now with this, like, going consecutive days. Like, that's my first experiment. I'm trying to do, like, because we have to reserve our desks, so I'm trying to do consecutive days and knock them out. And now, like, the more I even dwell on that, I'm like, bro, I don't know if I can do consecutive. I may have to break this up a little bit, like 2 days and then a day off and something like that. But I get it, man. I came home. I was supposed to go running. I was going to try and run before the show, before we got ready for the show, and I got in the crib, walked shorty, and I'm like, you know what? What's up? What's up, AJ?
Hey, I'm cooling, man. Just looking at Jay Tyler's stupid words he's saying already. We ain't even start the show good.
Hey, but AJ, because you did drop those crumbs, you might have to drop them something on the show. Just because you was dropping the crumbs, you dropped some breadcrumbs for him.
What do you say?
On Twitter the other day, he said Washington and the 49ers are not done, or they might not be done. And he put the eyeball emoji, basically like, he heard something that he didn't tell us, Mo. He didn't even tell us.
I mean, I ain't tell y'all privately, but as we go on this this other episode, it's because I don't want to mess it up for the person, and I also don't want it to go like super crazy. Not trying to be Adam Schefter.
Well, you already did that. I'm sure you did.
It's a lot of things that could be speculated from it. And as anyone that's checked out the posts, a lot of things have been speculated. Even from free agents, which I don't even understand how they brought in free agents into that. But yeah, man. I mean, it's good to see some motion happening. We closer to the beginning actual tempering period. And some things that I told y'all privately came to fruition over the weekend, which we about to get into.
Washington and San Francisco may not be done doing business with each other in the coming weeks. 43 comments, 57 retweets or quote tweets or whatever. Talking about some speculation. Motherfucker, you went viral, bro. That's almost 200,000 interactions with this thing, bro. Okay. All right. Yeah, hey, Monty and Jay Tizzy, y'all are hilarious about Jay. It's funny, bro. I told my friends hopped in when they saw the post, and I told them what was going on too. And they was like, they said the same thing, bro. But no, man, it's gonna be a fun conversation. I can't wait to chop it up with him because I really want to talk to him about offensive line. In particular, that was something I was really looking forward to. So we're gonna talk about that whenever we get a chance to get Jay on either this week or next Tuesday. But let's talk about Deebo. Let's get into it. Deebo Samuel traded to the Washington Commanders. Washington gives San Fran a 5th round pick. At this point, we've kind of had a few days to digest the information from a Washington perspective. I'll just give everybody a chance to kind of give their spiel on the situation. How do you all feel about Deebo how do you feel about Deebo the player, and obviously the compensation to get him to DC?
Well, I guess I'll start first. I mean, when AJ brought this up to us, like I guess about a week before this trade went down or whatever it was, my initial thought was, what's the compensation? Because I was like, I don't want to do this for anything higher than a 5th round pick. And mainly part of that was because I heard the speculation that the 49ers were thinking about releasing Deebo. And then there's also the case where Deebo's 29. I mean, he's, been through some, wear and tear, but at the same time, he's still very productive. So hearing about the trade and getting a 5th round pick for Deebo, I think it's nothing to complain about, because what is really the downside here? I mean, when you think about the trade in total, I mean, you don't even have him on a multi-year deal right now. You're just on the hook for this 1 year. You're giving up a 5th round pick for this guy. I mean, a 5th round pick, you don't even know if a 5th round pick is ever going to be successful in the NFL. And I mean, that's not to say that, these success stories doesn't happen all the time, but there's rare. you know, and Deebo is a proven productive player that Adam Peters is well aware of. Like Adam Peters was in San Francisco when they drafted Deebo. I'm sure Adam still has relationships with people over in San Fran. I mean, even though there's been some wild little reports starting to come out from the San Francisco media that I'm not too fond of, because it's like, why are these reports coming out now? One of those is, you know, Adam Peters, he may not have the warmest of relationships with the 49ers, and they were kind of glad to see him go. I'm like, why is that just coming out now? Like, you know,
I saw
like,
that, but I don't think that was a bad thing on AP. I think it was more so actually a shot at what's his dude?
Deebo.
Kyle.
Oh,
Kyle and
John Lynch. Yeah.
I think it was, well, that's how I interpreted something like that, for them to say like they felt like they really didn't need him in San Fran type deal. That's kind of how I interpret it.
But it's also could be interpreted too with looking at it from the standpoint of they're like, yeah, we're gonna fleece Adam. Like we don't like. Well, I mean, at least that's from the reporters, right?
Yes,
you know?
Yes. From that perspective, it's like
yes.
It's like let's go ahead and like the Donovan McNabb deal. Let's go ahead and
go
ahead and
right.
I see.
Now I don't know. I don't know how much truth it is to that. I just know that these reports are coming out now. And we didn't see these reports a year ago. We didn't see these reports about AP and, you know, all of that a year ago. Even with Deebo, you see a lot of the slander pieces coming out of San Francisco about Deebo now. Like, you know, all of the reporters that has been talking about him since then, they don't really have anything nice to say. But when you look at Deebo from the outside, you still see a productive player. I mean, sure, he may not be the Deebo Samuel of 2021, but this is still a good utility player on your offense that you can use a multitude of ways. I mean, we just seen kind of a glimpse of how they want to use a Deebo Samuel with De'Ami Brown. Like, and they didn't even use De'Ami to the full capability of what I think they will use a Deebo as. So, no, I mean, there's no downside to this trade. You know, it's a 5th round pick. Like I said, worst come to worst, you know, Deebo isn't the same Deebo, and you lost the 5th round pick. Like, you're not going to cry over a 5th round pick. Our 5th round pick from last year didn't even play many damn snaps in Jordan McGee. Now, he may, you know, play more snaps as it goes on, you know, in the future. But again, I mean, you don't know what these guys will be, but you know what a Deebo Samuel is. Like, Deebo Samuel has been a productive player throughout his career. Now, the only thing I will say, if this could give some people the, I guess the ammo to kind of slander AP if it does go wrong, because they'll say, man, like, how could AP trade for Deebo, who was already washed before he came to Washington, and he knew he was washed, he still traded for him? That's the only thing I can see, you know, is giving someone ammo for that. But other than that, I mean, this is really no downside to this trade, and I'm kind of excited thinking about the prospect of what he could be in this offense.
What's up, AJ? You good, or you want me to go ahead and take the reins?
No, go ahead real quick.
All right. So for me, I think there's a lot of angles that you can look at this. And Dre, like how you kind of outlined it is, I mean, you covered all the bases. I think for Washington, I don't disagree with people who say like there's no downside, but I do think that there is. I view this as like a medium risk, high reward type of situation. And the reason why I do that is more so from a financial aspect, and the fact that you know, making this trade is not a big deal. Like 5th round pick, it is what it is. But making this trade, I think you're gonna have to like strongly consider like how you will and deal moving forward. Like I think a lot of their moves in free agency now, because of the salary, it's not going to necessarily time up too much. But like if you wanted to go for a receiver, right, and you wanted to have other like a true nuanced route runner, somebody who can threaten on all 3 levels, like if you wanted that type of receiver, you know, you went in early going for Deebo, and that money tied into his contract, given that it's only a 1-year deal, so it doesn't hurt you on the long run. I think kind of can, if things doesn't work out, it can hamper how this 2025 season plays out. And that's kind of the risk side of it all. If I explain that as clearly as as it was boiling in my head. But from a reward standpoint, I think Deebo, from an explosive standpoint or playmaking standpoint, like he's a dog. And like I think for a person like him, coming into a situation where you only have let me actually rephrase this. Coming into a situation where you don't have George Kittle, CMC, Brandon Ayuk on your team, right? Three elite options who can touch the ball and dominate a game, and more specifically, CMC, who's getting 1,000 touches a game. You, Deebo, have been elevated. Now you didn't get a pay raise, but you got a promotion in your duties. Like, you're probably going to do some of the similar things here in Washington, but at the same time, you're going to be in a situation where you don't have the elite playmakers around you, and you are being viewed as a person who is going to be counted on to get, let's say, a minimum of 9 to 10 touches a game. Like, they're going to try to feed you. And I think for Deebo, who has been frustrated in the past, his main thing has always been like, yo, give me the football. And I think that's good for Deebo to come into this situation like this here in Washington, where you are going to be a focal point in the offense. And the good news is, like, there's still plenty of time to figure out what you're going to do around the offense from a receiver standpoint, offensive line, all those other things, even running back. I think running back is going to be a big deal. So I can't wait to talk to Thor about, some of these prospects. But at the same time, when you look at Deebo in particular, the weight thing is, he acknowledged he was 225 last year. Like, the whole conversation about Deebo and his weight was that he was overweight. And I don't know what the true number was in terms of where they wanted him to be. Like, it was always between, they said like 210 and 215 or something like that. So I don't know how much he was really overweight. Only Deebo knows, but he acknowledged that he was 225. So for him, that's clearly something that he's gonna have to manage. I think for people who think that he has no red flags is something where I'm like, all right, well, can we just be real about the situation? I'm not gonna sit here and say that the man ain't got no red flags. The only red flags that exist is like his ability to stay in top tier shape. That's it. It all relies on Deebo. Outside of that, like, from a playmaking standpoint, like, it's not like just because you overweight or you doing a little bit too much, you know what I'm saying? Whatever, eating, I guess. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be effective on the field. And I think people kind of always relate like his ability or athletes' ability to not perform if they are overweight or something like that. That's not always the case. Like, you can that happens and you can still be effective. So I just think for Washington, his most effective, him being at his most effective relies on him taking this offseason. So that's kind of where I am with Deebo, and the negatives. It all relies on him. The risk for Washington's standpoint is the fact that you do make this trade. Not giving up a 5th round pick is not a big deal, but at the same time, paying him $17 million kind of doesn't hurt you from a macro standpoint. But if you wanted other options, or if you had other options available to you, it was kind of eliminated with the money that you can have by making this move on March 4th. If it doesn't work out, I'm not saying it won't, but from a positive standpoint, he's a playmaker. He can take the ball into the end zone from any distance. And he's a person who is one of the more difficult individuals in the NFL that's able. That's on the field with the football in his hands to tackle, and his alignment ability. That is going to be an interesting question. Like, where exactly is going to be his most effective area? Now, of course, he's not going to be primary one spot, but when you talk about one of the reasons why he got tired of San Fran is like his usage and where he was being used. So, like, what exactly would be Cliff's plan when they have that conversation, whatever it is, whatever that looks like? What exactly would be that conversation and where he can be utilized most effectively or moved around where he can actually, be happy with how he's being used in Washington, but also being that threat on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cliff is pretty damn giddy at the fact that this is actually happening because, I mean, his whole entire tenure being in the NFL, he's been looking to replicate someone on his team in a role of a Deebo, whether it be Rondell Moore, Christian Kirk, Hollywood Brown, so on. When you have a guy that could literally take a 5-yard slant or a crosser 5-10 yards and turn that into a touchdown or possibly even 45 yards, that's a game changer. Washington does not have a run after catch guy. For so long, been waiting for Terry to develop and not get caught in some open field opportunities. This year, we've seen some improvement in that. Excuse me, with Terry being able to break some to the crib. But outside of that, you haven't had that type of guy. I mean, Deebo immediately coming in, he's the second best playmaker on that offense outside of Jaden Daniels. That's just the reality of it. When you break down the best yak guys in the league, Deebo's in the top 3 of that conversation alongside A.J. Brown and probably Tyreek Hill. Outside of that, it's not many guys that can line up anywhere in the field and be a playmaker. And I just think with some of the creativity that we've seen Cliff Kingsbury utilized with just B-Rob and Austin Eckler and even Jaden Daniels. I mean, Jaden Daniels was in the backfield on a couple plays with Marcus Mariota. You know, just imagine how creative he's going to get with Deebo in the RPO game, sweep game, screens, all those different things. I think it is important that they do get a running back that can be a home run threat. Unfortunately, you know, Mual's guy, B-Rob, ain't that. Austin Eckler still has some wiggle to him, but he's not necessarily going to break one. He's not a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Bijan Robinson, but I think it's an amazing trade. Personally, it's always been a target for Deebo to get to Washington from the time that it was open conversation to have trade talks with Washington. It was always something that he viewed as a place that he could go ahead and make his mark and regain his name. But on top of that, get closer to being home too from South Carolina. It's tough being all the way on the West Coast, especially the expenses and all those things. So just being closer to home, getting the opportunity to be able to be in the offense with a rising star at quarterback. Now, I don't even want to say rising star. He's a superstar. He's already arrived in Jaden Daniels at quarterback. But on top of that, a team that just, you know, was one game away from getting to the Super Bowl. I think that he can be a pivotal part. Of course, you need to continue to build with that team and wide receiver room, but there's opportunity here for Deebo to get an extension. And on top of that, be able to make some plays. Like you said, Maul, 49ers is really a run-first team. And there's so many guys that have to touch the ball and get those looks. So now when you come in as Deebo, it's Jaden, it's Terry, yourself, you know, unless they do hit with a home run with a running back. But in San Fran, you're talking about a tree of Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle, then yourself. Like, it's only but one ball but so many snaps in a game offensively. So, yes, people are going to harp on the weight thing, but one thing about Deebo, he ain't never been a slacker, you know? He had pneumonia, you feel me? But he works out consistently. As one of his personal chefs who's based in Phoenix is in here in this chat right now, he knows the work that Deebo puts in the offseason because he immediately pretty much after the season is done goes to Exos out there and gets it in. So it's not something where he ain't working out, he ain't busting his ass. It's just more so he got sick and put on some weight. But I think that this sparks a new fire for him. Also getting to go against Philly twice a year, the Cowboys, just being in that division, but also just giving him more opportunities to put the ball in his hands. You feel me? So
let me ask this to both of y'all. I mean, and because AJ, you brought up something that I've been kind of thinking about, you know, with you say the 49ers are a run first team. And I remember the story about when Deebo first started kind of taking those carries for San Francisco, and it was because they needed him to take those carries because they didn't have Christian McCaffrey at the time when Deebo kind of stepped up in the run game. And then you kind of see his uses kind of slip off a little bit as they start getting more of those playmakers. Now, with the trade to Washington, do you all see him taking, more of a backseat role as it pertains to the run game? I think for me, I'm kind of envisioning him being used more in the passing game and maybe used more in different ways in the pass game that he wasn't used in San Francisco coming here. And I personally probably see him.
Question, bro.
Yeah, and I personally probably see him taking less snaps as a running back. I mean, he's still going to be a playmaker, but I just don't see him taking as many carries and being used as kind of that dual role that he was used in San Francisco.
How many carries did he have in San? I don't know the numbers offhand.
Yeah, I don't know.
So he had Deebo. I was doing a comparison earlier to see like how many touches he had during his time there while CMC was there. He had like 530-ish touches.
Like rushing attempts?
No, I said touches. Oh. He had like 530 something touches. I pulled it up right now. He had 536 touches. And CMC CMC had like 500. I'm sorry. So Deebo had 536 in his entire career there in San Fran, and CMC had like 550 or maybe like 600 in the time he was with San Francisco alone.
And CMC missed a lot of games too.
And he missed plenty of games. So but to your question of asking directly how many handoffs he's had 202 rush attempts. He's run for 1,143 yards and 20 touchdowns. So that's kind of where he is in terms of the rushing standpoint. So he got plenty of touches. Like the last 4 seasons, it was 59, 42, 37, 42. And that's kind of where it goes. But a total of 536 touches.
Yeah, I mean, I see his usage going up more than taking a backseat. I think he's going to be exactly what you've seen each and every Sunday over the span of his career. It's just
you talking about running the football too?
Yeah, like I mean, because if you take that aspect away and dial it back, it doesn't make sense to make this trade. You feel me?
Well, I get you. I don't disagree. From a conceptual standpoint, I think when I think about Deebo, I think like why exactly did he want out in San Fran? And maybe we could talk to a San Fran dude. Like I actually forgot to hit up the guy I was talking to y'all about. I forgot to follow up with him. But like, why exactly did he have an issue with the handoffs in San Fran? Was it the frequency of handoffs? Like, I'm sure he doesn't mind getting carries, right? But I think like there's other ways to get him touches, and like those screens that De'Ami Brown saw, the screens that OZ saw, those quick first level touches or behind the line of scrimmage, even if they're pop passes, are probably something that he does probably value more than actually getting a handoff out of the backfield. Not to say that he's not going to be lining up at Pony or like alongside Jaden, but I don't know, man. That's why I said Dre is like $1 million question, because it's hard for me to sit here and say that he's going to get this. Like he got a lot of carries, bro, for a wide receiver, and I think that's a big. That's what I'm saying. Like that's a big deal, bro. And I'm not saying like drastically decrease his reps, but I don't see him coming in here finishing the season with what did I say? 40. What was the most he had? The most he had was.
Yeah, like what was the
59 carries? The most he had in the season was 59 carries.
So we also got to remember that these jet sweeps are considered rushes.
Carries, right? And I can see that a lot.
Carries as well. So not all of these numbers are running in between the tackles. They're
jet the passes.
No.
Oh no, I'm thinking of touch pass. Oh,
yeah.
Bro, go ahead.
So we got to be reminding of that, but. Also, I don't know. Maybe I missed it, but I haven't heard him complain about getting those touches in the backfield.
He took issue with like I would have to find this. But he took issue with just actually like getting like the amount of carries that he had. But I would have to find that part. Because I'm going straight off memory with that. So I'd have to find it. But that's I think that's kind of one of the big deals with him, like having an issue with his usage in San Fran. So let me go ahead and try and find that part. But Dre, like, what about you? Like, what? Because like I said, $1 million question for me is figuring out like how many touches is he going to get from a running back standpoint. I think that's kind of a tricky, like, unknown thing because you never really know until the regular season gets here. You can speculate it all you want, but like, do you think that it's going to be the exact same?
No, and that's why I proposed the question, because Kyle Shanahan, as we know it, can be a bit stubborn, and this initially came up because they needed Deebo to do this, and they knew Deebo had the ability to, kind of have that kind of running back style. So once they seen it kind of work really effectively, Kyle Shanahan's like, I'm gonna go to that well often, and Kyle and Cliff are two different people. Cliff for one, I mean, he utilizes the run game, but Cliff is not going to beat you heavy with a run power game like a Kyle Shanahan will. So that's why I kind of see Deebo's role, not saying it's going to be like drastically different or anything, but I think Deebo's role is going to be a bit different. And I think Cliff is going to highlight him in different ways than maybe Kyle didn't highlight him in, maybe something more effective to Cliff. But I do see him getting some of those carries, like you said, AJ, with the jet sweeps. And I do see him in some cases, he'll probably be in that kind of duo running back set with Austin Eckler, just to kind of keep the defense off balance. But I kind of see him kind of getting highlighted more in the pass game, but not so much, where you want him to go out there and beat man coverage, because that's not Deebo's strength. Like, Deebo's strength is kind of beating zone coverage, making guys miss, and yards after the catch. So I see Cliff kind of designing ways to get him the ball, on those short, quick passes, whether it's a slant, whether it's those, screens, maybe even a halfback screen when he's lined up in the backfield. But either way, you want the ball in his hands. I just don't think it's going to be kind of the way that Kyle Shanahan went about getting the ball in his hands. Because like I said, Kyle can be a bit stubborn. When he sees something work, I'm going to use you like this, regardless of whether you want to be used like this all the time, but because I know you can do this, I'm going to make you do it all the time. And I just don't think Cliff's going to do that. Like, even Jaden said, when I got here to Washington, when I had my first conversation with Cliff Kingsbury said to me, "What do you like to do?" A lot of coaches don't do that. A lot of coaches is like, I'm going to do what I like to do, and let's see if you can catch up to speed. But Cliff Kingsbury is a what do you like to do type of coach. So I do see him kind of working with Deebo and kind of highlighting Deebo in different ways than we've seen Deebo being highlighted.
Yeah, I was getting ready this morning, and I think my YouTube just like cycled through some, and it landed on Chris Long's podcast, and he was like, if I was Washington, I'd use Deebo on the field pretty much until he died. Because it's a 1 year. It's a 1 year deal. Like, maximize the hell out of him. I mean, that's just how I see it. I mean,
Deebo, I actually don't disagree. I don't disagree.
It's going to be intriguing to see, but I think what really will identify how he'll be utilized fully, which will still be what we've seen and accustomed of him, is who else they could put in that wide receiver room and also in that backfield and even at tight end. Because, I mean, if Deebo's featured at the slot, it kind of changes Zach Ertz's role a little bit, because he would eat up the middle of the field. And if Deebo's primarily going to be in the slot, that's where he's going to be.
So we could talk about Deebo a little bit longer, for sure. And obviously we can discuss that with Jay, when we get Jay on. But let's kind of wrap this one up and kind of shift to some offsetting conversations after the Deebo trade. Let's kind of close this one with, like, what do you all give the grade for Deebo if you had to give it a grade?
I'll go with
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go with a B+. I mean, like I told y'all privately, before the trade was going down, it was supposed to be, they were trying to get a fourth round pick. They ended up settling on a fifth. And I just think that there's nothing but upside in this trade. I mean, when you look around the league, guys that are getting drafted in the 5th round, like they're not really going to be able to be contributors in the way that Deebo can come in and be an immediate contributor. Even if you say he had an off season last year in San Fran, those numbers would have made him the number 2 receiver behind Terry on this roster. I mean, and this is someone who embodies everything that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters have been saying as a commander. I mean, when you got a guy that is not scared to run through people and brings that tenacity to the field, it feeds off everybody else, and that's something that they desperately needed. They needed a yak guy so bad, because not a lot of the plays that they run are supposed to be like deep balls. They play in between the numbers, and that's also a strength of Jaden. And now you got a guy that can literally take a 5-10 yard play and turn it into a touchdown. And we've seen that be done by Deebo repeatedly in his career. And on top of that, you can create mismatches lining up in the backfield or in motion. So, yeah, I give it a B plus, I guess. I forgot all about the grading system, but yeah, B plus.
Yeah, okay. I gotta go with a B plus as well. Not an A, just because Deebo's a little older. We there is some of those questions, but it's a B plus for the simple fact that it's a trade for a 5th round pick, and there's a 98% chance that Deebo is going to outperform a lot by any 5th round pick you would have drafted with that pick. So he's going to produce regardless of what you think about Deebo coming in, whether you think he's washed, whether you think he's past his prime, whatever the case to be. Deebo is going to be a main figure in this offense. He's going to be utilized a lot in this offense. He's going to produce in this offense, barring health. I mean, health is obviously the thing, and that's the thing. Deebo is actually available a lot. And I know a lot of people talk about his injuries. He stays banged up a lot, but he doesn't miss many games. Like T. Higgins has missed more games in the last 2 years than I think Deebo Samuel has missed in the last 4 years. So, he plays injured. He's a tough guy. And I do think you're going to get a motivated version of Deebo, which is something that's kind of a great thing if you're Washington, because a motivated Deebo is a guy that's going to run through a wall for you. And that's the play style that he has. His play style is I'll run through a wall. So you want that type of guy. So with that coming in, I give it a B plus, because like I said, he's going to outperform anybody they would have potentially drafted more than likely in the 5th round.
Chat, I want y'all to be aware. All I asked for was a grade. I'm gonna go B plus.
We gotta give you our reason behind the grade.
You ain't gotta get no reason. We just talked 30 minutes about Deebo, bro.
Hey, but that's the biggest news of the week, Mo. That's the flavor of the month.
Y'all don't know what I had next in the cut. Now we got 5 minutes to talk about it now. Throw on away, bro. Let's try and fit this.
You could have did first to read in the beginning.
Now let's go ahead and go into another conversation. It's going to be a condensed conversation now, thanks to you all taking up 30 minutes to explain y'all grade.
Let's make this the 2-minute round then.
All right, okay, all right. So let's see how much time we can stick to in the 2-minute warning, bro. All right. So after the Deebo trade, I had questions about how they could move with any other potential trades moving forward. The biggest name was Myles Garrett for me. They can make some other trades. I don't know what that could be, but the biggest name was Myles Garrett. I said that was off the board. I think that was off the board, and I think the indication, not because they gave up the 5th round pick, but because they chose to just make another trade, period. And I think if they were to make a trade for Myles Garrett, I think that would have been the next thing they did, like in the offseason, excluding Deebo. Like I think Myles Garrett would have been the offseason trade for them. So I don't see, and it can still happen, I just don't see it happening. What do you all think about the prospects of them making another trade for for a star player? What do you all think about that?
Yeah, I seen you tweet about that earlier, and I said we'd get to it on the show. I feel like
2-minute warning, be quick.
Yeah, I feel like Adam Peters already shown you that the perception of many, whether it be some of the media or even the fans that build through the draft, that there's multiple ways to build out a team. This is his second trade for a marquee player in the matter of 3 months. Like just look at it. And I don't think he's afraid to move on from picks to go acquire elite talent. And in his eyes, Marshawn Lattimore is an elite talent. Deebo Samuel is an elite talent. And Myles Garrett is just as elite as those guys in his mind. And if he can go ahead and make those moves, that's what he'll do. Trades take time, especially when you're not approaching trade deadline. So yeah, man, this Deebo trade took about 3 to 4 weeks to get completed. Myles Garrett is a little bit more complicated. So I definitely don't see this trade as being an indicator that they still can't go out there and acquire Myles Garrett. If they want him, they're gonna do their best to go get it done. Like I said, it's the second trade in the matter of 3 months from 2 marquee players.
I think if we talk about Myles Garrett, and I was honestly a little bit skeptical even before the Deebo trade about what our ability to kind of pull that trade off, just because we low on draft capital. We have 7 draft picks for the year. And, you know, if you're looking at Adam Peters' philosophy when he came in, he said he would like to build this team through the draft, a supplement through free agency. But obviously the timeline has been accelerated a little bit. But with that said, it's like with Myles Garrett, like, I think best case scenario, if you're talking about a trade for that type of player, is probably best if it happens after the draft, because then you can start talking about future picks and start giving up future number ones. I mean, but that's just one player. But other than that,
you could do that now, though, Dre.
Yeah, but Cleveland might not want to do that right now. Cleveland's going to want something.
Do what? My bad.
Basically, I was saying that the best case scenario, if you're talking about trading for Myles Garrett, is if Cleveland decides to wait till after the draft, because then you can start talking about future picks.
And
but if
you
you're talking about
do it now, AJ, that's what you said.
AJ said they can do it now. But my thing is, I'm saying that may not be in Washington's best interest. I think Cleveland's stupid. They are. We know Cleveland's stupid. I mean, this is the
ever.
But that would be in Washington's best interest if they wait until after the draft, because think about what Philadelphia just came out and said. Philadelphia said if it comes to it and Cleveland comes out and said they're going to trade and they think that Washington is going to make an offer, Philadelphia is going to make a higher offer. They're gonna beat us with a bid. And I think our best chance at beating them in a bid is probably wait until after the draft, if Cleveland waits after the draft, which would be stupid, but would be best for us because we would then have more leverage and more things to give up. That's the only way I see a Myles Garrett happening. But if it's before the draft, it's probably an Eagles thing. But other than that, no, honestly, Mual, to your question, I do not really see anything big happening trade-wise after this. I think this was their big move. I think now is they wanted to upgrade the wide receiver group. And I don't think they're necessarily done upgrading the wide receiver group. You still have the draft, you still have free agency. But now it's a matter of, going through free agency and upgrading the rest of the roster now.
Let me ask this.
Hold on. Because I'm about to say that was my thing. When people say the big move part with Deebo, I'm like, bro, like at the end of the day, I agree with you, Dre, in the sense of like I think this was their big move, but I also think like people like the story doesn't stop at 3 receivers. They have Terry, Luke, and Deebo. Like they're not done at receiver, and I think that people need to understand that like it's still drafting free agency. They still have to fill out the roster. They still got people to re-sign. That's also why I think OZ coming back. That's a big deal. They're going to re-sign they'll probably re-sign like around 10-ish of their own guys, if not more. Like they got
re-sign 2 of them jokers,
right? But they got some people to start bringing back on the mob, bro. They had way too many free agents. But go ahead, AJ. What's your question?
So with y'all having that mindset, you believe that Adam Peters picked Deebo Samuel over Myles Garrett?
No. No. Actually, I'm sorry. I think so. I was quick to respond for it. I do think so. And like my precedence is like look at how it may not correlate all the way, and I'm okay with that. But look at how they moved when they got here. Like they got rid of all of the guys that now again, we all understood that some of these guys just weren't good enough to stay on the roster. But one of my main gripes that I am okay with, but I expressed to you all on the show, is that, bro, they just didn't want some of these guys who can really still play, but they didn't want none of these old guys that was on the roster. Like they got rid of everybody from the previous regimes that they could and they kept whoever was too undeniable, like that you can't cut. Like you can't cut Terry, you can't cut Deron, John, etc., except Brian, all these other people. Like, but they cut everybody else. They want their own guys. They don't care what they look like. They're gonna bring them in. And if you telling me that you got my old man Deebo, who I was around when he got drafted in San Fran, and he's up for trade, I don't care how old he is. I don't care how fat he is. I'm about to bring him in, and I'm about to make sure he has a home here in Washington. I think he undoubtedly took Deebo and said, I don't care what the situation is in San Fran. I want you here in Washington with me. And that's kind of how I look at it.
And for my answer, no, I don't think he chose Deebo over Myles Garrett. I just think that because when you look at a 5th round pick, what the compensation was, a 5th round pick probably wasn't even in discussion if you're talking about a Myles Garrett trade. You're talking about 1st and maybe 2nd, possibly a 3rd round pick. That's why I said this trade for Deebo is fine because it's low risk. It's a 5th round pick. This is not usually something you kind of include in the top player discussion. So, no, I don't think this was something that they chose. I do think, to your point, AJ, that there is still a possibility that trade could be on the table, and it could be before the draft. But is Washington a team that could present Cleveland the best offer as it stands right now in the trade? That's my point.
I don't think they'll quit trying. Like, I want to make that part clear. I'm sorry. I don't think I made that clear on the show. I don't think that Washington will not try.
Yeah.
I don't think that they'll have the strongest offer. And I also think that they're aware of that. So I think they went with, they knew that they was going to get Deebo. But I think they knew they would get Deebo. AP knew it wasn't going to take that much to get Deebo. And so they went to go got his mans. But I also think that they're aware at this point with 6 draft picks or 7 draft picks now, only 3 in the top 100 this year. Like, I don't think they have what it takes to compete with other teams out there in terms of, like, if they want to make a trade now and as opposed to after the draft. That may be a whole different conversation. Well, but even still, I don't think that they'll be able to compete with some of the other teams out there who has better power or draft capital. Whatever.
Before we bring in our guest Thor, the leverage that Myles Garrett has is I have to sign an extension. So it's a combination of not just capital in return for the Browns, but who is Myles Garrett going to sign that extension with? That is where both parties have to be on the same page, because they can't just move him just because this team is willing to give up all their picks. It's where is Myles Garrett going to sign his extension?
Well, I don't think it's going to be I don't disagree, but I also don't think it's going to be such a limited pool. Like, I think he already acknowledged he wants to go to a contender. That doesn't mean Washington's the only contender out there. Like, if I just throw some teams out there, like, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about
NFC
draft
teams.
capital.
If you're talking about teams, NFC teams.
I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about draft capital. I'm just throwing teams out there. If you look at Detroit, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, you look at the Green Bay Packers. They're not. You could probably look at 3 teams in the NFC West. And I'm again, like I said, I'm just going off of teams who are competing, but not necessarily money or draft capital. I'm just saying, like, those, like, there's going to be options out there outside of what I didn't even Minnesota.
But who has Jaden Daniels?
Right. Who in the NFC is seriously contending? I would say San Francisco. I would say, and honestly, I wouldn't even limit teams in the AFC. Like, I think NFC is probably going to be the preferred choice. They don't want to deal with Myles Garrett, but I would say Philadelphia is going to be top dog. Washington is going to be a top dog. I don't think people are going to scoff at a Green Bay move. And then San Fran has the structure from a head coach to actual roster at this point. Like, I just think you got some options, bro, in my opinion. And maybe, who knows, maybe people do appreciate Sam Darnold. And
there's also Cleveland being
like
Cleveland, and Cleveland deciding that we'll just make him sit for the year. We're not going to trade him. That's what I'm saying. Hey, it's Cleveland. You never know. They can be petty, bro. They can be petty.
But they can't be petty if they stupid. They just stupid.
That's very true.
Let's get our guest in, man. Joining us right now. Hey, matter of fact, chat, if y'all got questions for Thor, go ahead, get him in there. We can shoot him off if we got some time. But Thor Nystrom, as I mentioned, is going to be joining us right now. He is an NFL draft analyst for MD Fantasy Life. Let me go ahead and change some things up. Get Thor in this thing, and there we go. Thor, what's going on, boss man? Appreciate you joining us.
Of course. How you guys doing?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Thor?
Hey, hanging in there. Just go ahead and living a little a pipe dream with this Myles Garrett conversation we had going on. You know, I don't know if we're going to get him, but you know, somebody on our show, and AJ, he has faith that we still have a chance.
I'm pulling for you guys.
Fingers crossed, man. Okay, so Thor, you had an article. Well, matter of fact, let's go with the article first, man. I think you had an article with your risers and your fallers coming out of the combine weekend, and pretty thorough list from both aspects, from the risers and the fallers. And for Washington sake, you know, I see a couple skill positions in that thing that I like: running back, wide receiver. You know, some things in there that look a little juicy. But for those who have not been able to see the article in your analysis and your breakdown, talk about some of the running backs and wide receivers in terms of the draft risers that you did appreciate from that standpoint, the combine this weekend. And then obviously we see some of your fallers as well. We'll get to that in a second, but some of your risers.
Might as well start close to you guys with Bashal Tutin, the Virginia Tech running back, who was incredible on Saturday. That was the big day of testing with the running backs, the receivers, and the quarterbacks. And Tutin was the day's biggest star. Ran as fast as Devin Achain, the 4.32, but Achain was 188 pounds, Tutin 206. So that was a 98th percentile showing, fourth best 40 time from the running back position since 2003. His jumps were awesome as well. Both were 96th percentile. We knew he was a good athlete. I don't know if we would have predicted that good. I mean, that is pretty elite, rarefied air that Tutin tested in at that size. But yeah, that kid has locked himself into day two. I would guess round 3 right now, but you don't have many running backs in the history of the NFL that are that athletic. So, I mean, like the question with his game, it's the ball security, 9 fumbles over the last 2 years. But, I mean, he proved everything else after coming up from North Carolina A&T the last couple of years at Virginia Tech. So we're going to have to work with the ball security thing because you get the dingers as well as the strikeouts with him.
And Thor, I want to ask a question about a position group that's I've been paying a lot of attention to, because as a Washington fan, this is one of the biggest needs that we need, and it's the edge rusher. And when I think of edge rushers, I don't just want a situational guy here in Washington, a guy that just can play third down. I want a guy that can set the edge and a guy that can be a potential 3-down guy. Give me your top 3 guys, or give me a guy that Washington will love to grab if he falls to the 29th.
Oh, he's smiling. I see something he like.
I guarantee they'd be stoked if Shamar Stewart fell down there, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. After the way that he tested, he got the perfect 10 RAS. You know, the RAS system, they only give out 110 over the entire data set per position. And they start at the mid-80s, I think is when the data starts, which means that Shamar Stewart tested as the most athletic edge who's ever gone through the NFL Combine. And then you have the almost 7-foot wingspan. The pressure rate was always there with Shamar Stewart. He sets a mean edge too, to your point, and a big guy as well, 6'5". At the Senior Bowl, he's 281, Combine 267. But either way, he's got the frame to add weight if he wants to. But yeah, I don't think he's going to fall down to Washington there at the end of the first round.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the tight end position. As you know, last year, Washington used their second-round pick to draft a guy in Ben Sennett, who finished the year with 5 catches. Who has impressed you? Who has impressed you at the tight end position of this class, as far as being a route runner and someone you could see that could be an immediate contributor going alongside Jay Daniels? And we're also expecting Zach Ertz to return. Who do you see as one of those guys at the position of tight end?
It's a decent tight end class, and maybe Washington, that'd be more of a day 3 flyer kind of a thing. But I think this tight end class has a little bit of depth where you could do that. On day 3, they're gonna have, speaking to the depth, you have things for different flavors. Like we have a couple good pure blocking tight ends here in this class, third offensive tackles essentially. We also have some of the move guys that I think are intriguing day 3. One of the move guys, I'm trying to find him in my sheet. Joshua Simon. I'm kind of intrigued by this kid out of South Carolina. A little bit of hair lash over 6'4", 240 pounds, 8.68 RAS. He had a good 4.65 40, good 10-yard split. Vertical was way above average, 38 inches. And then he was over 10 feet in the broad. The interesting thing about Simon is he is a slick receiver. And he's one of those, I like the guys with the deceiving dimensions. And Josh Simon's one of those guys. So he's only 6'4", 239. He has a wingspan of 83, which is the biggest in this class, the widest in this class, I believe, even though we have 6'6.5" tight ends in this class and 255-pound tight ends in this class. So Josh Simon, a guy where it's the pure H-back thing, you move him around and it's just the receiving. You get a bloated catch radius that sort of catches up or sneaks up on defenders. So that's a guy like we get into the 6th round that I would look to grab that guy if I'm a team like Washington.
From a offensive line standpoint, here we have a conundrum. Brandon Coleman. First off, it's a two-parter now that I think about it. What was your thoughts on Brandon Coleman coming out? Is probably the first question that I would ask you. But our conundrum here is we're contemplating like what exactly should they do? Should they kick him inside? And we're trying to figure out like if they kick him inside, you got to find somebody on the left at the left tackle position or even interior that that works here in Washington. So again, first question, what do you think about Brandon Coleman? But also if they did make this move to kick him inside, and it's like we found this guy that we like at 29 late in the first round, or maybe we can move back a little bit into that second round and accumulate some draft picks. I think this guy can really fit here at left tackle.
Yeah, so I liked Brandon Coleman. I was looking back over my board last year. I had him 75th overall, and I had him as the 6th offensive guard. My only thing with Brandon Coleman is I would, if I could, move him into guard. That's when I evaluated him. I thought that was where you were going to have the bigger odds of success with Brandon Coleman. As you guys know, very unique backstory with him, with the time in Germany and then, going to TCU and they ended up trusting him late in his career. They had a couple of good teams that he was on, but I would put him at guard. You have the dimensions there of a guard and you have the north-south game of the guard. My concern with him at TCU, it was in that frame, clunky footwork. And I was just, over the long period, I was just wondering, can we find a guy with smoother footwork for the boundary and put Coleman, have him knocking heads coming forward like he was put on this earth to do.
And I guess I'll ask about halfbacks, because in one of the popular chatters with the Washington fan base is upgrading the running back position from Brian Robinson. I mean, Brian Robinson, he's a decent running back, but we're kind of looking for that home run threat as a running back and a guy that can kind of, maybe be on the field 3 downs, a guy that can be kind of versatile. Now, this could be a guy that he doesn't have to necessarily be at pick 29, but we're talking about, maybe a day 2 guy, like a round 2, round 3. Who would you look at a running back for Washington?
Yeah, so you guys are sitting at, let's see, is it 59 in the second round?
It's 61. It's 61.
61, okay. Yeah, and then you got this, the 1/3, right? Do you have Miami's third? But
no,
not your own?
Philadelphia's third. Philadelphia.
Okay. I'm gonna have to update my pick thing here. But yeah, I mean, for what this is the class you take the day 2 running back. If I'm Washington, I try to hit one of my other needs at the end of the first. And I realize that there's a push, after Hampton ran and the Ohio State kids tested well, that, now people are, could we get 2 first-round running backs? Could we even get more than 2 first-round running backs? Like, this running back class is so ridiculously deep. I don't know why this would be the year that you would push that, right? Genty's a different deal. Right. I mean, Genty is one of the best prospects at that position in a decade. So you can start to argue about the generational designation on him. You go a little bit above your budget for a guy like that. The rest of the guys in this class, if it's me, I start early round 2 with the guys in that second tier. And that's okay. If I miss out on them, I'm fine going to the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th tier, however you want to say it, through the end of round 3. Because I think all those guys are going to be immediate starters, or they could be immediate starters. We brought up Tootin before, who I think is going to go in round 2. I think that would potentially be a good fit. As far as other ones, are you guys thinking to pair with Robinson in round 1? Or are we thinking like?
Yeah, this is probably
for me as a replacement.
Yeah,
yeah. I'm about to say he probably on it. He'll probably on his way out the door. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, another back I really like that is probably going to go in round 3 is Devin Neal from Kansas. At 220 pounds, he just has the slickest feet you'll ever see at that size. Now, he came down to 213 for the combine to test, but he tested okay. I mean, we knew that long speed was not his thing. 4.58, he had a mediocre 10-yard split too. But his jumps were good, and his agility, again, at that size, he didn't do the agilities a lot of the running backs don't. It's the last test of the day. So a lot of times you'll save that for your pro day. But I know that Devin Neal's agility at that size is high end, and he's going to be a better receiver in the NFL than he was at college. Kansas, I follow Kansas pretty close because that's where I went to undergrad. I watch all their games live. But they had 3 veteran starting wide receivers. I believe they were all seniors, and then a senior tight end as well. So during Neal's time, it was one of those things. They would give him the ball. He was always the bell cow on the early downs. And then on the passing downs, he was pure check down guy. But you saw on the instances where they allowed him to run routes, like this guy can shake people. And again, at a big size, he's just so fluid. So that's a guy that I would look at and consider too. And last name I'll toss out for y'all is RJ Harvey from UCF. I really like RJ Harvey. He's like a little bowling ball build type of a guy, but with burner speed, and he can run inside too because he's really darty. You know, it's one of those things, the jump cuts and all that sort of stuff. Like he can recognize the danger and then get side to side real quick. In college, he liked to take the outside a lot. He's not going to do that as much in the NFL, but he can run inside. So it's not just a pure, I'm going to try to bounce it outside kind of a guy. So those would be 3 I'd toss out.
Thor, let me ask you a quick question. This isn't my main question, but you mentioned how you felt a little bit about Genty. Do you believe that he has the home run speed for the NFL ranks?
I think it's good enough. Like he's not as fast, Travion Henderson. I don't think he's as fast, probably as Hampton either. I'm thinking high 4.4s, probably. So maybe around where Judkins was 4.48. So 4.48, 4.49, if I had to guess. But Genty is the best tackle breaker I've ever seen. It's just ludicrously hard to get him on the ground, how shifty he is. The play strength, yes, he has like a speed to power conversion kind of a thing going on, but he's also, it's the contact balance with that. It's like when my grandpa had a story, he used to tell us they lived in Brainerd up in northern Minnesota, and they kept getting their mailbox knocked down. And so my grandpa had this awesome idea where he got the new mailbox, he got a metal base, and then he put it in concrete. So the next time the car comes, the next day or whatever, the next time it happened, the mailbox was still there and the fender was on the ground of the car. They lost the fender. The mailbox won. That's what it's like trying to tackle Ashton Genty. Typically, you're going to just run into the side of a mountain, and then it's like the coyote just sort of peeling down it. So yeah,
who's your pro comp for him? Who's your pro comp for Ashton?
LaDainian Tomlinson. Oh. I think it's the point in Spider-Man gif with those guys. Yeah, like Genty's a sick receiver too. People don't realize that because last year they didn't throw to him as much because they wanted to give all his usage running. They wanted for him to make a run at Barry Sanders' single season record. He came up just short in rushing. You go back to the year before that, Genty had one of the highest receiving grades you'll ever see from PFF. They were lining him up in the slot and outside.
But Thor, that's what pisses me off about his season, because it's like if you have a guy that can show that versatility and he's such a threat, why did they not utilize him more in the passing game? It makes no sense at all.
Well, Ashton Genty is a dinosaur. He's probably the last G5 first round true blue first round pick that we're going to see stay in the G5 for his whole career. I wondered, why did he go back? Because I had some insight into the initial numbers that Genty was hearing from the cornucopia of SEC programs and Big Ten programs that wanted to get in there right away. He was looking at some attractive offers. He ended up going back to Boise because he got some like cuts of futures, like business, this is what Caleb Williams did at USC. Like you basically, we won't take it short term, we'll take it long term. And then he got like a car. It was like different stuff like that. But the whole reason I'm getting into this, I think there was a discussion with the coaching staff as well of, I want to make a run at Barry Sanders. Well, Ashton, if we do that, you realize that then we can't throw it to you every third down as well. You know what I mean? So it was an analogous amount of touches to the season before. It's just that they funneled it in like that. And you can't really argue he should have gotten more touches, because there was some times during last season I was like, you're pushing it a little bit with how many touches you're giving him when he's not a first round pick yet.
Yeah. All right. So here's my real question real quick. Let's role play no Diddy. at 29 for the Washington Commanders, James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee is still on the board. Emeka Buke from Ohio State is on the board. Stewart, as you just mentioned, is on the board. Jaed Campbell is still on the board. Walter Nolan is on the board. Who would you take for the Washington Commanders?
I would go Stewart. Yeah. Of those, like, I really think at the end of the day, Stewart is going to go in like the top 12 and maybe probably the top 10, just because guys with those measurables, they never fall lower than that. They're always the guy like the day after the draft, we're like, oh, he got, a reach, but they always do that. Ironically, with the guys with reach that are, those ludicrous athletes. But, at the end of the first round, certainly those physical tools are ridiculous. So, yeah, I'd do him.
So we got a couple names in the chat. I'm going to shoot because they're different positions. So I'm going to shoot the names off, and whoever, if you got a couple that stand out to you, definitely let us know how you feeling. But just the positions, we got Landon Jackson, the edge rusher from Arkansas. Got a couple Cass Scatterbo mentions. We see Terrence Ferguson and Mason Taylor, two tight ends that's in there as well. And we got some offensive tackles, but I've said a few names already, so I'll pause there. Like I said, a couple different positions, but if any one of them stand out to you, what's your opinion on those guys?
Let's hit them all. Starting with Landon Jackson, 6'6", 264. We knew he was a big edge. He's like a big power edge, hustle edge, like a Trey Hendrickson, like sort of in that phylum. Did not realize he was as good of an athlete as he is. He really opened eyes down there. It was a 9.88 RAS at the end of the day, almost 99 percentile. And he did all the tests outside of the agilities, which mentioned before, a lot of people end up skipping those. And he has ludicrous length, almost 84 inches, one of the highest of the edge, if not the highest. So I like Landon Jackson, and he's given himself a shot to go at the end of the first round. If he gets out of there, he's going to hear his name pretty quick on Friday. Scatterbo, I kind of go back and forth on, like, Scatterbo. Nobody loved him more watching him last year in college football. He's the funnest guy in the world to watch, but he has a game like David Montgomery, except he's shorter than David Montgomery. And so, like, you just wonder, can his frame, the way he plays and fighting people off of him every play, doesn't have the home run speed. Obviously, he elected not to run the 40 at the combine. You're going to be fighting off even more guys in the NFL. So how much punishment can Scatterbo take? It's probably more of a mix and match committee guy than it is a 3-down bell cow in the NFL, but he'd be an interesting mix and match guy with like more of like an airback guy that could work outside the tackles, and then that gives you the explosion, and Scatterbo gives you the meat and potato stuff, both as a runner and as a receiver. And then the tight ends. Oh, Ferguson, he was the best testing tight end that we saw. Like, Ferguson opened some eyes. After the top 4 tight ends or so, there was like a grouping of like 3 or 4 where you're sort of jockeying for position. And Ferguson, he staked his claim to potentially move to the top of that. Obviously you have your 2 crown jewels at the top in Warren and Loveland. And I guess tight end 3 really is that's open. So I mean, Ferguson potentially could jump all the way up there, but 9.81 RAS at 6'5", 3/8, 247. And he was, every single test he did, he was at the top or near the top of the tight end group. He could play inline, he could play in the slot, or again, use him interchangeably. He blocks a little bit. There's a lot of tight ends in this class that don't block at all, that you can't put inline. So he can do that, and he can also help you as a receiver. And then Mason Taylor's just super smooth. I mean, he's Jason Taylor's son, and like their frames are the same. They look the same. They even kind of move the same. Mason isn't crazy explosive. He's just super smooth. It's like he came off like you can tell he has the professional athlete genetics. He's one of those guys, like he catches it and he seamlessly becomes the runner. It's just everything is fluid. The routes, the know-how is already there. He snaps the route off right when he should, right on time with the concept. Like Nussmeier, the quarterback at LSU, loved working with him because they would go deep, run deep, and then they would do like a play action boot where it was a timing concept. And, it was like 4 or 5 yards upfield and then get flatten out to the sideline. And on time, every time, Taylor was right there, turning his head right when the ball was coming, hit him on the hands. And like I said, then he can do the smooth stuff pushing upfield.
So I got one last question, man. I appreciate your time, man, and your enthusiasm for the draft, man. Is definitely appreciated. So I want to go back to the offensive line, and tackle, like from a trait perspective. You mentioned Coleman's footwork, and like if there's one thing that popped out to me this year with him is like if there's one thing I noticed for him, he can cross his feet when he's out in space, and then sometimes he can actually like stop moving his feet completely. And I'm like, it had me thinking if there was one thing that is like a fatal flaw, I wonder like what coaches or evaluators that's projecting successful tackles in the NFL, like what they can't have. If you're looking at those positions and specifically tackles, what is that one flaw or what is that one thing that they must have in the NFL to succeed or to play at a very high level from a tackle position?
Yeah, the two things are it's a position where we talk a lot about the length, and Armand Embo from Missouri was a guy we were talking a lot about that last week, and Will Campbell from LSU. You have to have the arm length and then the fluidity of those feet. You have to have the footwork to mirror, right? Like, and so those are, and then augmenting off of that, your ability to recover, your core strength. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things after that, your anchor. But like, I would say that the two things that can nullify you really quick, even if you have everything else, it's the feet and then the length.
AJ, Dre, y'all good?
Yeah, I got one last question, especially with the enthusiasm that you do have and knowledge of this draft class. Who are your favorite prospects overall? Not the guys that we keep hearing about, the Ashton Genties per se or Travis Hunters of the world, but overall, guys that could be projected anywhere from round 1 to even possibly undrafted.
One name that I would toss out for that, I already tossed out Devin Neal. Devin Neal's kind of my boy, but another one that I would toss out is Jalen Noel from Iowa State, who's now, his rise continues. I don't think he gets out of the second round. He's a pure slot receiver from Iowa State, but had a really, really good career. Then he had an awesome senior ball, and then he went and tested better, I think, than anyone was expecting. 97th percentile. Size adjusted athlete, and he was one of it was like 4 or 5 receivers did every single test, including the bench, and Jalen Noel was one of them and still put up a 97th percentile size adjusted, and he's only 194 pounds, so he got dinged on the size, but I mean, you can tell what kind of an athlete he is. He's such a good route runner, and he doesn't drop the ball. So you're getting with Jalen Noel, you're going to get a really, really, really good starting slot receiver. For the duration of certainly of his rookie contract. But yeah, like I think round 2, and you're going to get a valued starter there.
My last question for you, because am I mistaken? But you are a Minnesota guy, aren't you, Thor?
Yeah.
How do you feel about JJ McCarthy next year?
Said Minnesota?
No, I knew I could hear the accent, but I didn't want to be wrong. It could have been North Dakota. but no. How do you feel about JJ McCarthy going into the season? Is he Minnesota starter, and what's your prospects for him going into the future?
Yeah, for sure. I love JJ McCarthy. He was my number 3 overall player in the last class, behind Jaden Daniels. So I'll shout out you guys with that. But I'm a huge fan of his game, and I think people get things wrong about his game. You know, look, last process, just looking at the counting stats, but it's a guy who won a state title in high school. He won a national title in high school. The other year, they lost a state title, and then immediately turned around Michigan, a program that was considering firing Jim Harbaugh when he got there. And then they made 3 consecutive college football playoffs, culminated in the national title right before his 21st birthday. He ran a 12 personnel offense there for a sitting NFL head coach, Jim Harbaugh, that called him the best player in Michigan history, best quarterback in Michigan history, and the guy that should have been the number 1 overall pick. And drawing some parallels to Justin Herbert, as far as that goes, McCarthy definitely not that big. But I think the thing that people sleep on with his game is the mobility. He's a tremendous athlete. He had the 6th fastest 3-cone last year at the combine, regardless of position. Runs either a high 4.4s if you believe Michigan during the last time he ran, or low 4.5s if you believe Kevin O'Connell, who likes to joke that he could run faster than JJ McCarthy. But either way, you're looking at a premium athlete. And then he was 1 mile per hour last year off the NFL Combine's record for max velocity throw. The kid has a bazooka, and he carries his mechanics with him on the move. So, I mean, he is very dangerous moving around the pocket. He can hit guy 3rd sector, opposite side of the field. I think he's going to be a star.
So with all that said, this offseason, are you re-signing Sam Darnold, or are you rolling with JJ McCarthy year 2?
Sam Darnold, he can return if he takes the same contract he did last year.
You know damn well that ain't happening.
Then thank you for your service.
Yeah, there's your answer.
and good luck.
Hey man, Thor, I definitely appreciate you joining us on this episode and in this show, man. It's like I said, your enthusiasm and your knowledge is definitely appreciated. I hear you all the time on the local shows. So it's good to have this conversation with you, and hopefully we can have you down a lot. I just want to get a floor, an opportunity to let everybody know where they can find you, hear from you, everything that you got going on, boss man.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Good talking to you. Thanks for having me on. You can find me on Twitter at ThorKU. That KU is for the Rock Chalk, Kansas. And you can find my work at MB Fantasy Life, fantasylife.com. We got all my we got scouting reports for the quarterbacks up right now, running backs, quarterback rankings, and then most recently combine risers and fallers. Working on a mock draft now that I'll submit tomorrow. So you'll see that later this week as well on Fantasy Life.
There it is. I just reposted the article I was mentioning earlier as well. So for everybody that's on Twitter, go ahead, check that out. And Thor, thank you. I appreciate you. Be safe, boss man.
Appreciate you guys. Take it easy.
Yes, sir. And there goes Thor Nystrom, man. Good to have him on. Good to chop it up a little bit and talk some draft. Fellas. There is several different things that we can continue talking about, but that conversation is a good thing to lead things on. Again, for those who are still in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you are still here. Jay Gruden is going to be.
Shout out, happy birthday to Jay Gruden, man.
You know what? That is actually a part where I didn't even mention. The first thing I said was he forgot it was his birthday, and I left it there. Happy birthday to Jay.
Yeah, happy birthday, Jay Gruden. Redskin legend.
Right. Shout out to AJ for that part too.
Hey, quick question: When is the
Loudon legend?
when is the official date for free agency? Is it March?
I think the champion appearance.
You said what?
The champion period starts
the official date for free
or Monday.
Okay, so if the temporary period starts Monday, that means then the NFL league year starts Wednesday. So the next show we'll barring some kind of interview we have soon, will be right before free agency starts or right the day of free agency. So hey.
Yeah, man, we're gonna be busy. We're gonna be busy. Okay. What do we got? Mual, I'm gonna go ahead and leave with this one.
Quick question for you.
This was actually funny because it came out of nowhere. He was talking about Deebo fit, bro. I don't know. He just said tell AJ.
AJ had that argument. I didn't see that.
He said sorry, bro.
I don't even remember.
Was it the Eagles fit? Maybe the Eagles jersey he was wearing.
Man, I don't be paying attention to grown ass man fits, bro.
He had that lean good.
I keep seeing Eagles fans posted that picture. I didn't even know it was Deebo.
Okay, do we do an emergency pod if Washington trades for Myles Garrett?
Hell yeah! I mean that's worthy of an emergency pod. But
it's worthy of emergency pod, but you know that shit ain't happening.
Hey, you know what else? You know what else is worthy of an emergency pod? If you drop the news that you say you're gonna drop AJ.
I can't, man. I can't.
Well, you can tell us privately. You can tell us privately.
But like I told somebody who tried to argue with me, I'm not trying to be no insider. I'm an outsider.
Well, you can tell us privately. We ain't gonna share your secrets.
Yeah, I'll tell y'all privately. I trust y'all. You feel me?
Yeah, tell us privately.
We got.
And I'm not even.
We got other people trying to be Adam Schefter, you know. So
yeah, I ain't even gonna lie to y'all, bro. If somebody offer me $30 for that information, I ain't gonna tell y'all. I swear to God, I ain't gonna tell y'all.
Like, now you give me $100K.
If y'all offer me, if y'all offer me $40, I ain't gonna tell y'all. Y'all can try to make the offer. You know, just DM me. You know, and
it's for sale for $100. So I will give it up for $100.
You will give it up for $100?
I will give no Diddy. I will give up AJ.
Nah, bro. Hey, it's time to end the show, man.
Dre on the Colombian prices.
No,
hey, bro, we out
Dre out here on that Medellin.
$100. Chop it down, chop it down, chop it down, you gon' chop it down. Chop it down, you gon' chop it down.
Damn, set, watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.